Hey, community, this is Kyle Newton. Good to have you with us. I have the opportunity today to be with Taher, the founder and creator of MSP Camp. MSP Camp is one of our clients that we build platforms for. And fortunately enough, he was just right down the road from me. My offices are in Plant City, Florida, right out of Tampa. And he's just 30 minutes down the line in Lakeland, Florida. So I had the opportunity to come and visit their new offices. And a lot of what we're going to be talking about today is the platform that we've built for Taher and his company. But we're also going to be talking about themification, gamification, social engagement architecture, and so much more. Taher and MSP Camp are really an ideal avatar, an ideal model client for us because they're basically using everything we do to the max. When I met Taher roughly about 9 months ago or so, I was jazzed from day one. Matter of fact, in preparation for this podcast today in this video, I went back all the way back to my notes from the sales call, and it was just really, you used the term divine connection from that standpoint. And I really feel like that's been that way. It's grown into not only a business relationship, but a fast friendship. And I knew from the moment I saw Taher's content, as you can see here, everything in this office is themed. I'll probably do some B-roll after this and show you guys these offices. There's these huge camp murals, grass on the wall, all kinds of stuff. I knew that Taher and team would be ideal clients for gamification, themification, and WP platforms. So Taher, thanks for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. I really appreciate you coming to visit the office. Yeah, I feel like I know you so well, and it was kind of crazy. This is the first time we've actually met in person.
I know it.
So yeah, man, I'm just stoked that you're here. I'm stoked to talk about everything that's happened, what's happening next. It's just super exciting, and just really grateful that we were able to find you and your team. It's been awesome.
Absolutely. We're going to get into some of the metrics. I was looking through some of my notes, and you've been kind of celebrating some of the metrics that's happened, since we really did a lot of work on your platform and what's happening there. So we'll get into some of that. But my audience doesn't know you, so tell me a little bit about you before we get into MSP Camp. Like, how did you, maybe first, what is MSP Camp? So my audience has an understanding of what this business is, and then maybe back up into how you got into MSP Camp and created it up to the point of us meeting.
Yeah, absolutely. So MSP Camp is a marketing membership website for MSPs specifically. And MSPs is the acronym for Managed Service Provider. So basically, we provide marketing collateral for IT service providers throughout the world.
Okay.
MSPs and IT providers are notoriously bad at marketing because they usually like corporate washed, boring ass content. Like It's usually not very good. And so we kind of came into it with more funky, more fun, more funny, kind of crazy, because that's what worked for our MSP.
Right.
When I was the head of marketing at an MSP. So just that immediate twist on content struck a chord in our market, because it was the first time the market was like, wait a minute, this is fun, which in itself was a little controversial.
Right.
But, being, there's like mainstream, then there's like crazy, and then like right in the middle can be like prolific. And that's kind of what we were trying to go for. We don't want to be crazy, but we definitely want to be like not mainstream.
I disagree. You guys are pretty crazy.
Yeah.
I've seen some of your stuff. We'll get into that later, but I'm sorry. Go ahead. Continue.
We definitely have crazy content because if MSP wants to go hard, we are there with them to go hard. And so like that, when people started seeing this content of this giant ram-eating monster destroying a city versus like your computers are slow, right? Like showing something of like wow factor that people can get access to for $100 a month or $300 a month. It was kind of a no-brainer for a lot of people.
Right.
And so it just like, we had a minimal viable product, which I know we're going to get into, but it was basically like locked pages on a crappy website, and it opened to OneDrive links. And if you don't know what OneDrive is, it's like Google Drive kind of. Right. And that's how we deliver the content. Yeah. And even with that, we got it to about $30K a month.
That speaks to the quality of the content you guys were creating.
But it was like, mid last year, I was like, we can't, like, we're growing. We can't be the company that's got locked pages with OneDrive links. And that's when the whole search started.
Well, let me back up real quick just to make sure I'm clear. Totally. So you were a marketing manager for a MSP, right?
Yep.
And MSPs are, and this is something I learned in getting to know you, you're basically zip code locked, meaning this is a service that typically you do on site. You're going in, you're installing computers, managing networks, you are doing cybersecurity and other things that can be virtual or remote, but there's a lot of, I got to get in my truck, my van, and drive across the town to meet with someone, right?
Yeah, there's only about 5% of that, but the chances, if that 5% happens and it's a client so far away, you're kind of screwed. Right. So it usually locks people into staying pretty close, usually within a 30 to 50-mile diameter of the office.
Gotcha. So your avatar isn't someone that's offering services typically across the United States, across the globe. It's someone that's kind of focusing, can use Google My Business, can really locally advertise.
That's exactly right? That's exactly right.
And so you then were doing that work for an MSP where you started then developing the content. Is that right?
That's exactly right. Yep.
And then I guess you were watching your numbers, kind of seeing what worked, didn't work, and kind of began to, as you were talking about, find the balance between the professional content and the crazy content.
Yep.
What drove the clicks, what drove the calls, what drove the appointments, and all of that. And you were just constantly managing that content.
That's exactly right.
How did you bridge from content creation? Like when did you say like, other people want this content or that kind of thing? What would that bridge look like?
It was June 2022, and I was doing very well at the MSP I was at. I mean, we grew from under $1 million to coming up on $5 million when I was there. So I just really helped grow the MSP a lot, and I loved it there. But at the same time, like I knew I needed to make more money, and I also knew that I had a passion of being creative. And I was like, I don't want to say tapped out at the MSP I was at, but I was like, I need more opportunity, really. And so I realized, I'm like, we only market, like as you already perfectly alluded to a local market. And it takes me so much time and effort creating this content. I know the content's work because how much we've grown. So I was like, this is so valuable to other MSPs. And that was like the aha moment. And so I pitched it to the owner of the MSP. I was like, look, we should just package up the stuff we've already created, put it on a simple website as a minimal viable product, and just see if anybody wants it.
Right.
And he was like, let's do it. And I was like, but if we're going to do this, I need to have that like kind of equity conversation now. Like if this works, I'm going to put a lot of time and effort into it, which I absolutely did. I mean, it was a very, very busy year. It still is. So I just want to have that conversation right away. I was like, I don't want to get it sticky where it works and then like, I'm not a partner. So we had that conversation day one when I pitched it to him, and he was like, cool, let's do it.
Nice.
And yeah, that was kind of the inception of it.
Sweet.
June 2022.
June 2020. That wasn't too long ago, actually. I mean, this has been as we'll look at the numbers, this has been kind of a hockey stick growth for you. And what's interesting is the majority of my clients are somewhere in that startup to, growth scale model. We have a lot of enterprise level clients that are 100,000 to 1 million contacts, 1 million to 10 million followers online. So we have large, as I like to call tribes, but we have a lot of tribes like yourself or organizations that are kind of at that stage. Here you're at an MSP, you're killing it. You've scaled that primary company to 1 to 5 million, and now you're locking out this content in June of 2022, and you're launching a business around that content. And that's one of the things that really attracted me to you. A lot of my clients they've got good content, but it's just not wow, excellent content. And that's one thing I always talk about with my clients is there's content, community, and commerce. Inside of a membership platform, you're trying to get your members to engage around those three things. If you don't have the content pillar, it's hard to get the subscriptions or the MRR, the monthly recurring revenue, i.e. the commerce, and it's hard to build a community if they're not engaging around that content piece.
Yeah.
And starting with that content as the central pillar and element was definitely a strong pillar of success. So you had that, you moved that into the platform. What was your first MVP stack? Like what systems did you use to create your membership site?
Yeah, so WordPress, Divi as the builders, and then we just used MemberPress, super simple MemberPress, just to lock the pages. So literally 80% of the website, if someone found it on Google through SEO, which we were ranking pretty well for SEO, which blows my mind because 80% of it was locked. And if they tried going to a page that was locked, it would just say, hey, you're locked out. Obviously, I put like a message there to try and get to upsell them, but that was it. And then after that, I did my best at putting Buddy Boss on, and then I added like a gamification tag. So I was just doing my best trying to figure this stuff out, and it was very wonky, did not look pretty. It was silly, but again, at least then it had like where they could log in and have a profile and some like, some type of gamification. Because this was before I even knew you, and I knew gamification was important, but I just used some plugin to try and help me with that.
Right.
So super simple stack. And then the content delivery was literally the OneDrive link where they open it up and it's like, here's the 10 folders, emails, blogs, infographics, motion graphic video, blah, 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 blah. And everybody just could download the OneDrive.
Yeah.
And what's funny is even if somebody canceled,
They still had access.
It's a public OneDrive link. And all they had to do was go back to their history and click it, and they had all the content. You know, so it's so funny that we got to where we were with that wonky ass system. But it's like you said, it was proof that the content was at least decent enough to get people to stick and stick for a while.
Well, again, I could beat on this drum forever. If you don't have content, everything else falls down. Everything's really hard work. The community and the commerce is just uphill, hard work if you don't have the content to drive the engagement, because that's what they're there for, whether it's learning, LMS, courses, things like that, or it's resources like what you're providing, you know, or any number of content. If the content's not the core principle and the core driver, then the rest of it's really hard, unless it's fully a community model. And even that's hard because the community model is so crowded and got billion-dollar players running around there. It's hard to develop just a community. So I think you did an excellent job. So did you do all the technology work on that stack? Did you hire someone else out, or was it you just basically behind the scenes kind of figuring it out as you go?
Yeah, for the MVP, it was just me and Steven. Steven's was my first employee. He's now my creative director. We just kind of figured it out together with a lot of YouTube and whatever, which is why it was very simple. But yeah, it was all us.
Well, that's the beautiful thing. One of the things I like about WordPress, and first off, let me take a step back. Kudos, right? Because most people overshoot their MVP. They overbuild, right? To take this crawl, walk, run approach where it's like, I'm just going to put it out there. And I want to talk about that in a minute. Like, what did it look like to get initial traction up to the point we met? Because that's a scary point for a lot of my clients, especially my startup clients. Like, they constantly focus on building, and they spend no time actually on marketing and getting that initial group of people out there because they're afraid, right? Seth Godin's so great about this, like Leap First and all of his great books where he's talking about you've got to just ship. You've got to ship your product. So really kudos to you that you're like, I'm just going to throw an MVP out there. I don't really care. I mean, you cared, but you know,
No, that's exactly right.
I'm going to put it out there. I'm going to risk it. I'm going to take that risk, put it out there. And if nobody likes it, well, nobody likes it. But if they do, they do. And most people don't take that critical step. The fact that you jump to that flaming fire of perturbation to launch that out there and then build your stack, you know, your technology, WordPress, MemberPress, GamiPress, you know, these things that you were using, ActiveCampaign for your CRM, so forth, so on. It's amazing. And I'll say one more thing. That's one of the reasons why I'm so excited about the WordPress space. When I was doing all of this custom code, no one could enter into that. Now with WordPress and all of that, we can have a story like yours where you just go WP beginner or whatever, you know, YouTube channel you kind of plug into. It's like, oh, install WordPress. Oh, install this plugin. Oh, make this plugin do that. It's so easy to launch an MVP. It's like costs nothing other than time and a few $100 of plugins. And boom, you got a business that's now trending in $1 million plus, you know, revenue. Simply putting a bunch of free plugins together. That's powerful.
It's that's spot on. You just summed it up perfectly. Yeah. And it's like, I always tell MSPs that want to start marketing their business, like they want to start spending all this money or whatever. I'm like, wait. At first, when you don't have money, it's got to be sweat equity.
That's right.
Like you said, you got to put the time and the effort in. It was a pain in the ass, but also our expenses then were nothing really.
That's right.
Right.
Time.
And it's just time, because it's like, I don't want to spend 20 grand seeing if this is going to work and then failing. Like I'm willing to put that extra 20 hours a weekend to build a minimal viable product. And thank God I did, because I feel like if we launched with too much at first, it may not have worked. I may not have been as I might not have been as invested because of how much time and effort I had put into it in the beginning. But,
yes. I'm telling you, and this is really important because I deal with clients all the time that do hire me at the very beginning, and I'm not the cheapest guy on Upwork, you know, being top ranked in the U.S. for membership sites, gamification, Buddy Boss, LearnDash, all those kind of things. My price points are much higher than outsourcing someone from India or whatever, but as we'll talk about, I bring a lot more to the table than just make, you know, plugin A, connect to plugin B, and it work, right? We really get in and under the hood with our clients to really help them scale. But the fact that you were able to get in there and do that is absolutely amazing. And that's one of the things I love about WordPress is not only can you do it yourself, you can then scale and outsource it to other people and hand it off because it's a common platform, you know, from that standpoint. So tell me what it looked like from the time that you launched that MVP. Like, how did you get initial traffic? Did you try to get on podcasts? Did you just email your clients? Like, how did you get those first 10 users, you know, or members?
It's a great question. So, you know, being market minded, I was kind of like, I focused on how am I going to get audience day one before we even had a product, because it was like there's so many businesses that have an amazing service and then they can't get anybody and it dies. So fortunately, we already had a passion for talking and helping people. So we launched the podcast, and I shared it on Reddit a couple times, and it just kind of like really took off very quickly, because I think the first 10 episodes were just the highest value stuff I could kind of put out there. And so people were just immediately kind of engaged with the conversation, and it was an underserved aspect of our industry. And actually, preceding that, I did a webinar like 6 months before that, and they had like 100 people show up to this webinar. And I was like, oh my gosh, I did not see that, expect that. So that was the first time I realized, oh, there's a massive need for this. And fast forward, we started the podcast, that was going well, and I was like, cool. So we had an audience of a few hundred people before we even launched the product.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is so important. And when we launched, we already had people that knew, like, and trust us, because they spent 12 hours listening to us. And like, okay, these guys are not full of shit. Like, they know their stuff, and we trust them. And so when we launched, even though, again, it was a crappy, minimal viable product, the content was good enough that they're like, cool, I know they're going to get better, so I'm going to stick around.
Yeah.
So it's just building that audience first. A lot of people go a little too complicated with marketing. We only did one marketing at first, the podcast.
Wow.
Now we do a lot more because we have a lot more money and a lot more time to market, and we're a marketing company. But yeah, we can stay simple at first. And I always stress that to companies. It's like, don't get it spread too thin with your marketing.
You know what's interesting in that story, and we were talking about it just a minute ago, that you didn't invest a lot of money and not even a ton of time into that MVP. People often make that mistake. They hire someone like me too early. They drop 10, 20, 30 grand into there. And now all of a sudden there's this pressure to perform that gets them in their head, gets them in their emotions. And now it's all about the urgency of recouping that cost of investment. And instead of focusing on their audience, you didn't have that pressure because you really had no cost to recoup other than some time. Thus, it's like, well, you know, this work, it doesn't work. There's not like, I could have bought a car. I could have made a sizable down payment on my home, or whatever, versus doing this thing. And
that's having so spot on.
I've experienced this when I thought we were making a lot of money in my early days selling monthly recurring subscriptions to network marketing companies and things like that. And I had all this extra cash. I thought, I'm going to day trade, right? So I went out and got the trading platform. It allows you to play with fake money. I was just like printing money, fake money, and then the moment I dropped 10K in there and started trading 10K, I lost 10K just like that. Yeah. Because when you put money in it, all of a sudden it's like, when I click buy sell, this is like actual dollars. And even though 10K wasn't a big deal, it was just like, it's actual dollars. And I get that same mentality from my startup clients who invest so much time and energy in just trying to perfect the launch, which comes back to kind of like Seth Godin, leap first and launch and ship. I had a great friend and client who would always say, better imperfect today than perfect tomorrow. Because you're in the market today. You got out there, you put your shingle out, whole 9 yards. So I'm so glad you did that. And you kept yourself from a lot of emotional perturbation by over-risking off the front. You didn't put a lot of risk off the front. So you did the podcast, you had the webinar, you had kind of 100 people that liked and trusted you, and then you sent out an email? How did you just say, hey, we're open for business?
Yeah, I read a book called Launch that I really enjoyed. And I also read a couple other ones like 12 Months to 1 Million, Alex Hormozy's $100 million offer. So there was a couple of books I read leading up to this that kind of helped prepare me for like when we're going to launch a product. It wasn't haphazard. Like I really used the book Launch and then the mindset of the other two books to kind of get me ready for this. And I just love how Launch's whole thing is like, you got to like build hype, just like we're doing with the conference, which I'm sure we're going to talk about. Like, you get to build hype before you even launch. And so like we would start building this email list through, there was some telemarketing we were doing to build the email list. The people on the podcast were able to get added to the list. And so we already had a list of like 150 people before we launched. And it was like, we were kind of nurturing that list with, here it comes, this is what we're planning, blah, blah, blah. And this part of, I wasn't really expecting to talk about this part, but I think it's an important aspect of anybody's journey. Like, so the week we were going to launch, all the hype was happening. And that week that we were going to launch, we actually found out my son had eye cancer.
Oh my.
And so it was like this moment of hardship of week one of trying to be an entrepreneur, and you have this business relying on you, have a new business you want to launch. And I'm actually in Miami, having a surgery for my son in this rare retinoblastoma. Wow. And it could have derailed everything. And obviously my priority was him. So I sent an email out when I got back. There was a hurricane that was coming the next day, and I'm sitting there on my laptop.
Wow.
My son's in my lap, and I'm sending an email out to everybody.
Yeah.
Hey guys, we're going to delay a week. You know, I didn't explain anything really. I was just like, yeah, there's a hurricane here. We're just going to delay, and we're actually going to launch October 10th instead of October 1st. And ironically, actually helped. People were like, yeah, no worries. And we launched, and immediately we got like, 30 people, which at $100, $300, I think we were making like 4,000 MRR month one.
Wow.
So it was just that kind of combination of reading those books and making it like a hyped, excited thing. On the podcast, we started talking about, hey, we're going to launch this day. So when launch happened, we had a rush of people coming in, and immediately, I could breathe easy.
Nice.
So
Nice. I
was
appreciate you sharing that. I hadn't heard that. I don't think you've shared that story about your son. I didn't know that happened. And that's the reality of this business. When you're a solopreneur and you're launching a business like this, every life event trickles, right?
Yeah.
It does. It's not like, hey, I'm going to take off work and then things can keep going. When you are, like Stephen, as Robert Kiyosaki says, as you're an S, self-employed, you are the business. And if you stop that week, the business stops that week,
That's why I wanted to tell that story. It wasn't like boo-hoo me or boo-hoo my son. It's just the reality of like, there's going to be some massive hardships as we go through this journey, as your clients are listening to this or anybody else. And it's like, we have to understand we're going to get through it. Obviously, priority is like making sure everything's fine, but also not just giving up, like realizing we just have to keep moving forward as fast as we can and making sure we're taking care of the priorities first.
How's your son, by the way?
Oh, he's great now.
Awesome.
Yeah, he's great. He's amazing. Cancer free. Just had his like year and a half scan, and he is totally cancer free. Unfortunately, he did have to. He had lost his left eye, but he has an amazing prosthetic. It looks beautiful. He's the most handsome little 5-year-old on the planet. So like, it's worked out absolutely the best it possibly could.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's a great story. That's a great story. So you launched, and I love that you didn't just launch willy-nilly, right? As a marketing guy, you know better, knew that anyway, but you read those books, you got into the mindset, you followed a pattern and a process, and it paid off. You got those first ones going. And then from there, let's see, how long was that before then you reached out to me? You kind of got to the place of, okay, content's working, business model's working. It's the delivery platform now that's holding me back. It's not the content. What was that gap in process?
It was probably about 8 months later. I just wasn't happy with the retention rate. We were losing 10% of membership every month.
Wow.
And I was like, oh man, it just it was a bummer. When I asked people, they're like, yeah, we don't know what's new. Like it's kind of hard to use. And it's like, totally. And that's when I just knew 10% churn, even though we were growing 20, 30% every month, 10% churn was unsustainable, because what happens when there's a month where we don't grow or we go negative? We add an extra 10% to that negativity, right?
Right.
And so I just realized something had to change. And I just knew almost immediately, okay, we were at like $20K a month. I was like, okay, for sure at this point, we're going to hire somebody.
Right.
It's not going to be, we're going to just spend more time trying to figure it out ourselves. Like, no. We did our dues. We figured it out. We now have a minimal viable product that's growing 10, 20, 30% every single month. Now's the time. And so, I just started the search, and, I saw your profile, and it was like, the reviews were just insane. And so I didn't look much further than that.
Well, that's what's interesting. I'm glad you shared that. A lot of my clients also don't realize the clients I love to work with the most are the ones who already built it to that point themselves.
Nice.
Because then whatever I do, you understand what I'm doing. You understand why I'm making decisions. You can feel like, oh, that is a good solution, versus something like, throw me up a membership site some way or another. They have no understanding. You had been flying this plane, and maybe it was a Cessna with 4 dials on it and a hard stick, right? And you're ready to go to this Boeing 747, something a little bit more complicated, but you at least knew how to get that thing off the runway. You knew what it felt like in turbulence. You knew what it felt like in smooth air, and you knew what was missing. You knew what was broken. You had a general idea of what it was going to take to fix it. And that is the best platform business owner, someone who at least has that knowledge, because then otherwise you don't even know how to choose someone like me, or whether someone like me is doing the right job or not. You would at least have the idea of like, you're doing what? Why are you doing that? You would know that if it was off, it was off. So the fact that you knew your tech stack well enough was a big deal.
That's a good point. Yeah.
And I thought I'd read, just for fun, I brought up your Upwork listing. You found me on Upwork, which is the largest freelancer platform out there. And like I said, I'm ranked for the things that make make me that I'm interested in: membership, gamification, Buddy Boss, LearnDash, those kind of things. You said to improve the current website, to have a greater focus on community present, to present campaigns in an easier fashion, to have built-in ability to custom paid requests for members to request custom content. We currently have a growing membership website, which we've talked about. We built it quickly using MemberPress and the Divi Builder. It works great and members are happy. However, as we continue to grow, there's some limitations on the website that we'd like to address now rather than waiting until membership continues to expand. Of course, this is right. I got to kick out
awesome. I'm loving this.
It feels like down memory lane. Doesn't it? I was reading it today. And I'm like, oh, wow. Because we get to read it now knowing that we've fixed these problems, right?
Oh, man, this is great.
And you said things that are going well: monthly membership managed by MemberPress with billing through Stripe, right? Achievements through GamiPress, fun and easy to manage, camp tokens for camp store purchases, overall look of website, homepage, campaign page. All of those things are great. You said, but these are things that need to improve. Content currently delivered through OneDrive link. Need to find a better way to deliver content. Some are large files such as videos. A professional looking forum where members can post their profile photos, achievements can be displayed. A better dashboard that the current one is unimpressive in the account page. An area with account dashboard where they can see content uploaded just for them, a content search where someone can check cybersecurity and social media, ebook, et cetera, and display the content they have access to, and a content requester where they can put in a request for custom content, all of that. He goes, you closed it. I understand this may not be we may not be able to tackle all this at once. I have no problem doing one or two things at a time. Of attached objectives document, which was thorough, which is the same as stated above, but with two visual representations of what we want to do in those last 2 points. And so that was, end of September of last year, 23.
Yeah.
And you posted that on Upwork. I think you did invite me.
Oh, yeah.
You reached out to me.
I think you might have been the only person I invited, actually.
Yeah, I think so. And I went and read that description. And of course, that description is just target dead on, the type of avatar we want to work with, everything we've set up to this point: an MVP that started, content that's rocking, membership that's building, an owner who now says, okay, I built the rocket to this point, but I need to focus on my core strength. I need to build the content for the community. I need to constantly continue to market. I need someone else to take this technology stack to the next level. And so we met. I watched a good portion of our record. I don't normally record sales calls, but I'm really glad I had ours recorded. I was listening to that. And at the very end, that's kind of when you said, we were kind of wrapping up, because you were feeling it out. Because this is how most of my clients are. They read this testimony on Upwork, like this guy's got 5-star ratings and expert vetted on Upwork, which only 1% of the people are on Upwork actually expert vetted. That's where Upwork calls you and takes you through a bunch of paces. Like, can we really expert vetted? They'll refer us out to their enterprise level clients, right? Top, people that are spending $10 million a year or something on the platform, right? Nice. And so, expert vetted, all these 5-star ratings, all that kind of stuff. Most of my clients, when I get on with them, they're like, is this real? Like, this doesn't seem real that someone could solve those problems. So we talked all the way through. We talked through this process. It was about an hour call, and about the last 10 or 15 minutes, you're like, okay, I'm sold. This seems like and I appreciate the term, a divine appointment. And then we started making plans to kind of get started. Yeah. Anything about that you want to recount?
No, it's pretty spot on. And I remember, because at that point it was still a subsidiary of Alltek, so it wasn't even my own company. We were just operating of Alltek, and we were making some revenue, like 20 grand a month, but it wasn't even covering the expenses, because the company put like a bunch, like Steven's salary, half my salary, the office, like a bunch of expenses on our expense rate or whatever. So like, I didn't have 25K cash to do this. And so I knew I had to sell it to Tom. Yeah. And he didn't meet you. That's right. And he didn't see your reviews and stuff. So I had to, that's why it's really good to be a salesperson when you're starting a business. It really is. I mean, it is a skill that 100% has come in handy so many times. So I just pitched the whole thing to Tom, basically went over this, and I said, this is our solution. And he was like, cool, let's go. Nice. And so like the next day I was like, let's do this, Kyle, or maybe the next week or whatever. Yeah, no, I was jazzed. And again, kind of coming back to my perspective in meeting you, you'd send out that proposal. I'd looked at it. I'd already looked at your website, MSP Camp. I'm like, this is great content. I could just see it. I could see the bones of the content that was out there. And I'm like,
knowing what I know about membership sites and that the content is the core pillar of it all, I'm like, there's so many awesome things we can do here. So even in that first call, obviously we were looking at the objectives, right? And typically there's kind of like 3 stages. And then you went to the 4th stage, which we'll talk about, which is themification. But there's typically 4 stages to a life cycle, of a client like mine. And first is establishing the platform. My agency, TribePUB, has now kind of spun off a new brand called WP Platform, which stands for WordPress Platform. And what I've done over the years is really define 7 key roles that I have to have in my business, from platform marketing, platform sales, platform architect, platform developer, platform specialist, platform designer, and so forth and so on. And so the idea is that we've developed a very systemized way, and then we have all of these plays, because there's probably 100 things we do every single client. We move the website, we set up e-commerce, we do all of those things. And so we've turned all of these into plays. And soon, here in the next month or so, that site's going to be out there, and it's going to be able to actually serve someone like you when you're at your early stages, meaning help guide you build a better MVP.
Nice.
At like $5,000.
Cool.
From that standpoint, where someone could just spend $4 or $5,000. We set up the base platform, and then they just basically paint by numbers to get that MVP set up.
Oh, cool. Wow.
And then when they want to do gamification and themification and advanced platform building, then they can engage us at that $25K. And we 25K is like our current main package, and it's profitable for us, but we can pack, as you'll probably speak to, a ton of value into that $25K. So when I looked at your platform business objectives, number 1, we needed to get you on a better CRM and a CRM that you were using. We needed to get that content curated, get it off of OneDrive, get it inside the system, get it gated, which means behind the paywall properly. So when memberships come on and off, we get that done. You had the ability to manage any custom created content, because part of it was not just buying content off the shelf from a subscription, but if they wanted something customized, they pay. And then there was a request and delivery system built into the back end of their membership. We had to move all of the billing from MemberPress to WooCommerce, which is always scary for an existing membership site owner, because they don't want to lose that recurring revenue. They don't want to disrupt the life cycle and the billing cycle of the member. So we had to easily transition there, painlessly, seamlessly, while still letting them to manage their MemberPress, because we can't actually move the Stripe token. So the people that are on MemberPress can still manage, not MemberPress, manage their recurring from that back end, but the new ones now are on WooCommerce subscription. So we had a lot of just get the right platform, and that's what WP Platform is all about. It's best practices platform for a membership site that does the CRM, does the content, does the community, does the commerce. We're using BuddyBoss. Obviously, you still have and should always have a Facebook or social presence, but how do we bring more of that conversation back to the platform where you can incentivize, gamify, and do that type of conversation? So we brought BuddyBoss in, we bought LearnDash in for your course, and then we used Crocoblock's Jet to really content curate your content in a powerful way. So from that time we met in September all the way through October, November, December, we were going through that 5D process of discover, determine, document, develop, deploy. We went through those discovery phases where I'm kind of sussing from you, who's your avatar, what's your business model, what are the pain points that you described in Upwork, and what are the other pain points. And over those first couple of months, we made all of those adjustments, moved and migrated your content out of OneDrive into the system, built that whole e-commerce system, and then did some additional enhancements, created that map, that geocentric map, put a 30, you had a, you only sell certain licenses within certain geographic boundaries. So we put a geo fence around certain boundaries so people couldn't overlap sell, see that all on a map on your display. We accomplished all of that and then finally launched by January.
Yeah.
It was really cool.
That was amazing. Looking back how much work it was both for our team and your team, it's funny because now that I'm a business owner, even then there were multiple times where I was like, is this even profitable for Kyle? And I'm not saying that to blow smoke either. I was just like, we met every single week nonstop for, at first they were like 1.5 meetings or something, or 2 hours meetings.
Every week,
The amount of notes and documentation and like step 1, step 2 that happened before any work even started. Like I learned a lot from that process. And I tell people all the time, I've literally never been through such a thorough onboarding where it's like, what exactly do we want to accomplish? And then the next meeting, this is what we talked about last meeting. Let's flesh it out more and then like make sure we're still all on the same page. Like the amount of thoroughness before any work even started is something I would say 99% of businesses don't do.
Right.
90% of businesses want to sell the thing and then implement the thing.
Mm-hmm.
And the amount of months of prep before any work got started is something that I think more businesses should do. And as an MSP, where we're doing like server migrations and these really tough things before MSP Camp, we really should have done more of that. So anyways, I just learned a lot through your process of how I can improve our process. And now like we're moving into like websites and SEO, and like we make sure we have an onboarding call where we really hear from the client before we just start building a website, or before we start working on the SEO. Like, you know, we're not nearly as thorough as you are, but you know, it's a good goal to aspire to.
And that's I appreciate that. Thank you for that. It's something, you know, I've been doing this for 24 years, custom 4.5 million lines of PHP and Java and, you know, different types of Ajax, different things. And then in 2015, my dev team pulled me kicking and screaming into the WordPress ecosystem because I was very much a custom guy. But once I got into the WordPress ecosystem and kind of settled into it between 2015, 16, 17, 18, and got real comfortable with it, it took me 3 or 4 years to get real comfortable with the WordPress ecosystem. But once I got comfortable, then from 2019, 20 up till now, really developing what we call plays. We have a very systemic process to build because it's a very predictable set of tools and solutions. The outside is different, right? The marketing, the content, but how you curate the content, how you build the courses, how you deal with the billing, how you deal with the billing transition, how you deal with the CRM transition. These are all just very common mechanisms. So, you know, I've got about 40 people on my team. I've got, you know, my 2 grown children on my team. I've got my senior developer in the US in Kentucky who's been with me for 24 years. Got some CRM specialists up in Canada. And then we've got a large team over in India and a very tight-knit. We're very tight-knit in how we work with them. And just kind of going back, I hired them to do a project for me, and they knocked it out of the park. I hired them, and the next one they did, the next one they did. And then they started giving me feedback, like, because I was just a client of theirs. This was an agency over in India. They're like, we've never met anybody like you. Like, every client is just so unorganized. And when you give us a project, there's a very detailed scope document. It's extremely clear. How can we work more with you? Like, and can you teach us this process? Which is really what had me starting to birth WP Platform. I have my agency TribePUB, which is tribe, i.e. MSP Camp is a tribe of MSPs. And the pub is a platform unified business. Most people launching out on the internet, they have this thing over here. They got Kajabi for their LearnDash, and they've got this over here, and this over here, and this over here, and then they got like Zapier, which is basically duct tape and baling wire for the internet, right? And a lot of times that duct tape and baling wire fails, and now all of a sudden something breaks. It takes 6 different people who know different elements, and it's very disjoint for the owner. And it's very disjoint for the customer who has to go over here for learning, then over here for this, then over here for that. So we create a pub, a platform unified business where everything's in one shop, everything's in one box. And then we unify that reporting and that user experience, both administratively for you and Steve and your team, and then the user experience across the board. And so going back to how do we make it profitable even for 25K, because typically you can get a website built for 5, 10, 15K. And here we're not just doing a website, we're doing like infrastructure. And the reason we've been able to cut our cost is because we have very clear systems and processes, right? And so one of the things I try to do is minimize cost, complexity, and risk for my clients, right? How do I make it affordable, cost? How do I decrease complexity? I build it on WordPress in a place where you can go out, and then we do a lot of training, as you know. And then how do I de-risk it, right? I document everything I do very well so my clients know exactly what they have. They can have internal staff manage it or their internal team. And thus it decreases all that risk on the business owner. And then we're just able to do volume, you know, just a lot of clients at one time and really work through that. Awesome. And so from September through January, we spent a lot of time documenting. Matter of fact, I was looking through my note document. Well, this is it. It's 96 pages, 99 pages, literally 99 pages, you know, at 11-point font, you know, and that's just my note document going from September 23rd to today. Right, of all the things. And then we had a scope document, a determined document, then we had a gamification document, then we had a themification document. So you have to be thorough when you're building something like this. Like building this building, you couldn't just write it on a napkin, start handing it out to contractors, right? How many studs? Where's the wire running? You know, so we really try to think about that as we go through the process. So we got to January, got you launched. And I think probably the number one benefit that we did was the content curation, right? Taking it off OneDrive, putting it into Croco blocks, and then creating a very easy to use interface where people could search, curate, sort down that content.
Yeah.
Tell me about that and the community's response to that.
That was definitely just the greatest change, because before, like, you know, just to put the listeners in the mindset of how cumbersome it was, like they would have to go to the campaign, they'd have to open a backpack, you know, so we, you know, kept it themed. Then they would click into the OneDrive. They have no idea what's been added to the OneDrive. Mm-hmm. They have no idea when. They didn't know what new content there was. The only time there was a new content is like when a new backpack was posted. Mm-hmm. Well, we were putting content all over the place. They just didn't know where to find it.
Right.
So the content curation now, like when they log in, they see, oh, here's all the latest stuff since I've logged in. Here's everything they've posted in nice columns and rows, and I can download it. And there's like these little ribbons that say, this is a social media post, this is an ebook, lead magnet, here's your landing page, blah, blah, blah. So right off the bat, they see what's new, which was always a complaint. Mm-hmm. What's new? Now, boom, right there. Like when you log in, here's all the new stuff. And then it's like, okay, well, what campaign are you going to run? Is it cybersecurity, Microsoft 365, legal, healthcare, whatever? So you can click it and we'll see all the content for that vertical or service. And then they can go, actually, I'm just looking for a lead magnet because I want to put it on my website. So they can just click, you know, the healthcare lead magnet, and that's the only thing that displays. So it takes 1,000+ pieces of content now.
Yeah.
And if they click a couple things, it narrows it down to the 6 things that they wanted.
Yeah.
So before it was 1,000 pieces of content, it's like, good luck. Now it's like 1,000 pieces of content that you can actually use. Mm-hmm. And in addition, if they don't want that, they can just go in the search and say, I'm looking for backup stuff. And they would put backup and everything back up there. You know, so like that alone has set us up to scale, because when, for instance, we had a massive amount of churn when probably like 50% of people that started a trial canceled on the old platform.
Wow.
Because, you know, they logged in. Yeah, I had a, you know, onboarding video and some emails I sent them, but like they log in and now the pages are now like open for them to look at.
Right.
They still don't know what to do.
That's right.
Like if they have to be very motivated to like get in there and start getting content. Whereas now they get the beautiful onboarding video, you know, that shows them exactly how to use it. Also, my team administratively reaches out to schedule an onboarding call just to get them comfortable around camp. We want it to be welcoming. Mm-hmm. And then when they log in, boom, they see this mountain of content. As soon as they log in, they can just keep scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. And it's very clear, like search, check boxes. Like it's very clear what to do next if you're looking for content. And, you know, I'm sure we're going to get into specific, you know, metrics and everything else. But yeah, that was definitely, there was a lot of massive benefits, but that's the one that made our life so much easier. Administratively, we weren't posting enough content before because it was kind of cumbersome. It's like, okay, where's the OneDrive? Like, where do we put it? Blah, blah, blah. Now, Steven just gets to post the thing.
That's right.
And it goes where it needs to go. Like when he's uploading the content, he puts the content and he said, oh, this is healthcare ebook. Boom. It goes to where it needs to go. And then the new person that logs in, if they're Scout Plus and it's a Scout Plus thing, boom, Scout Plus, we see it.
They even see it in their social feed.
And they see it, exactly. And it's right there in the feed, like this is the latest stuff. And it's categorized where it needs to go. Like that administratively has given us the confidence to actually create more content. We're creating 3 pieces a day right now. So there's 60 to 80 brand new, beautiful pieces of content going up every single month.
That's crazy.
We never in a million years would have done that back to the OneDrive links just because of the administrative burden.
Yeah. As systemized business, probably the business book that shaped me the most was Michael Gerber's E-Myth.
Oh, I love that.
Entrepreneurial myth, right? And I have an entrepreneurial seizure. But what he talks about is there's a big difference between a systemized business, a system-centered business, and a personality or person-driven business. Mm-hmm. And that really shaped my whole concept of building systems, i.e. what we were talking about earlier. My business is systemized, but then I get to take the blueprint of that system and apply it to these types of businesses, which usually have a systemic administrative process or need a systemic administrative process, a systemic content, a systemic billing, a systemic growth. And if you don't have that system at the beginning, then it is a lot of just human effort. There's frustration, there's confusion, and a confused mind administratively or a confused mind at the customer level, everything stops.
Totally agree.
Everything stops. So if we can smooth everything up, that is the beginning blocks of gamification. A lot of people think gamification. I have a brand and a tool called Gamplify, and it's goals, groups, and greatness amplified. So the letter G in front of the word amplify. And under Gamplify, that's where we roll out all of our plugins, all of our reporting, all of our engagement. I like to say that I use the term gamification a lot because that's a buzzword, but it's more than just gamification, which is typically points, levels, badges, scorecards, challenges. That's a subset of what I like to call social engagement architecture. We're building social and community platforms. That's what a membership platform is, regardless whether it has forums, groups, activity feeds. It's still people coming together to get their information. How do we engage them in that? You know, this goes all the way back to my roots. I started in the year 2000 building membership sites for the network marketing direct sales arena. You know, WordPress didn't come out to 2003. MySpace came out in 2003. Facebook 2004. The 2000s, the early 2000s were the intersection of Web 1.0 and Web 2.0. Web 1.0 was the flat web. You go to a website and that's it. You might shop. Web 2.0 is you join a website, you join Facebook, you join MySpace, you join Twitter or X, right? There weren't a lot of companies in the year 2000 having membership sites, but the network marketing direct sales had to engage around content, community, and commerce, training, education, what was, you know, having a administrative account, all of that. So over these last 24 years, we've been able to create real systemic ways of what does it create? What do you have to do in a site to create social engagement architecture? And the smoothest social engagement architecture you can create is one that is just so not obvious and in your face. It's just the site works. It accomplishes the goal without any noise, without any clutter, without any drama. To your point, I join MSP Camp. I'm welcomed by Taher with the video. And in 1 minute, click here, do this, do that, do this, do that. I now know I'm oriented to the site. Next step, I'm presented with the primary offer of the site, which is the content curated in such a way that it's common. I don't have to learn a new interface. I don't have to learn a new skill. It's right there where I want it. And then if I want to engage with some of the more ancillary stuff, groups, activities, and other the features, that's there. But we deliver the promise of the brand, the promise of the site, just boom, right there in your face.
Exactly.
And that translates to churn ratios and things we'll probably cover at the end of this, getting into some of the really cool metrics. What was also happening in September, October, November, very quickly, I think it was even in the first discovery, if not, it was the second discovery call. And looking at your content, I began to talk to you. Already had a little bit of gamification with GamiPress, and GamiPress is a great plugin. Problem is, it's super heavy. It really slows down your site. Not super easy to use. That's why we've created our own gamification tools now, built it directly into the Gamplify CRM, which you're using. Moved you from Active Campaign to Gamplify CRM. Again, not a third-party SaaS, a platform unified business that has the CRM built in. We do have a lot of clients that still have, you know, Salesforce, HubSpot, Active Campaign, Infusionsoft, but then we have an onboard CRM that really does the engagement that happens right there on the platform. So we moved you over to Gamplify CRM, did all of those elements. And then we started saying, what happens if we take this content that you've created and themify it? There's a term, many of you have heard, gamification, but themification is the concept of taking a theme. So MSP Camp created a camp theme, and we'll take some shots of the office and how themified the office is. I began to present an idea to you of what if we took your courses and instead of being just talking head, hi, this is Taher, and this is how you do marketing, what if we made them fun? What if we put you and Steve in front of a green screen, you dressed up like a Yeti, or you did whatever, and we create a map and overlay that on top of the learning experience where they choose an avatar and go through a learning journey with you. Matter of fact, I think you have a map of, we'll look at that in a minute, but this is all part of the onboarding. They get welcome to that video, and then basically, do you want to start engaging with the content? Boom, it's right there, tools right in hand. Or do you want to take this journey into our community and a learning experience with MSP Camp? And I was so excited when I remember the day I presented, would you guys be interested in themification? I was hoping it would be a yes because you guys were so set up for it. And you said yes. Tell me a little bit about your themification journey.
Yeah, I just think that, I mean, you know, part of the reason we went to MSP Camp, I just think themification, it just makes you makes your brand stick out more than like, you know, the original thing I was going to say was like MSP Content Machine or some stupid shit. Like, you know, it would have just immediately been forgotten. We wouldn't be where we're at today, I feel like. So I was always a fan of themification. And so when we were originally preparing the course, it was like classic me in front of a laptop, like, this is how you do this, and this is how you do this. And like, you know, you kind of presented the great
E-Course Adventure.
I watched. I was like, this is amazing because I actually watched it. And that's the thing. We could have built an amazing course. No one was going to watch it.
That's right.
people might start to watch it and then they don't, like, because I'm a pretty type, like, I'm not type A, but I'm a pretty like driven human, and it is so hard for me to get through any course.
That's right.
And so, but theirs I got through, and I'm like, that is what we have to go through. And then I kind of listen to more of their rationale behind it. And it's like the left mind is, or one of the two, like the left side is like, you know, critical, analytical, it wants to learn, but the right side likes creative and fun and stories.
That's right.
And it's like, so if you're only engaging one side of the brain, like that's where you get drop off.
Yeah.
But if you can create a course that engages both sides of the brain, like you are much more likely to actually get through it. And when I look at phase 1, which we're planning phase 2 and phase 3 now, it's already written everything. I just got to start filming again. That's all on me.
Phase 1 of themification, we've launched your first map, and then there's going to be 3. We have
phase
3
1 of
maps.
themification, exactly. And the people that start it almost get through the whole thing.
Yeah.
Right? Like, there's a lot of people that don't start, which I get. But the people that do start it, they get through it. Whereas if we just did, this is how you do Google My Business on a laptop or whatever, it just wouldn't have had the same level of adoption.
So themification for you guys, it's where Taher and Steven get in front of a green screen and they take you on this journey. Like they eat magic mushrooms and there's this map that you follow. Maybe we'll do some cut in on the video, but there's a map and you start, you're naked and afraid. You choose an avatar, a male, a female, different skin color, different things like that. And you just have a t-shirt. Then you start going through this virtual map, which basically takes you into a lesson inside of a course. And instead of the lesson being just a video like this, right, it's green screen and it's like Taher walking, okay, Steven, where are we in the woods and what's next? And there's this whole story around the journey of an MSP, right? And now instead of just learning information, you're like, oh, I'm starting naked. You like start without a shirt on.
Yeah.
And you're shivering.
Shock factor right off the bat.
It's like, you know, that's pretty, you're nice and built, so it's not too bad. It starts off with him without a shirt on, right? So, I mean, that's not like showing up to a talking head and he's like, I just got into this MSP thing and I don't know what to do. And, you know, and that's how so you're telling this story about what a normal MSP marketing provider would feel. Like they just got hired into an MSP. The owner's throwing them like, bring me more customers, you know, and they're like, what do I do? You know, and so you start telling that story of what it feels like to be an MSP marketing professional. You're naked and afraid, and you go through a couple lessons. Now you got a backpack of tools. Now you get a cool shirt, and on you go. And then you're dressed up as a Yeti in one part, and then you guys are eating magic mushrooms, and Steve swells up and gets really big and floats in the sky. And you know, it's just something you'd want to binge watch. And that's when I saw E-Course Adventure. I literally spent 2 hours and I watched the whole thing. I couldn't stop watching. Gold. And that's the kind of content. Again, social engagement architecture is something that should be like almost invisible. It should be like, I've got to engage with this without feeling manipulated, you know, from that standpoint.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, so you had some good feedback about
well, it's what's a bummer to me, not to go too off track, but like when we launched, I only got like a few comments on it, and I was like, wait. I was like, the amount of time and effort I just put into this phase 1, I was like, what the heck? But now, and then like that immediately demotivated me on filming the next 2 phases. But over the course of the last few months, the amount of positive feedback and people being like, please, where's the next phases? I'm like, oh man, I wish y'all would have given me this when I first launched.
Yes.
But it takes a while for people to understand, like, okay, this is here. I need to take advantage of it. You know, they might have saw the email, they might have saw the post. I probably should have pushed a little harder on it. But now there's so much positive feedback that it's really reinvigorating me to get the rest of the filming done.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is work. That's one of the things about themification. It is work. It's not just sitting down like we're doing today. You got to develop a script. You got to shoot the video. You got to do some stuff. But it's definitely works over time and it grows. And it's not the only thing. It's right. It's just another tool in your overall engagement. You know, the content curation, the user experience, the community, the themification. And now after this podcast, we're going to be planning out gamification. And gamification. And the gamification is the points, levels, badges, and challenges. And what I teach in gamification, there's 4 key intrinsic drivers. You were talking about that left brain and right brain. What motivates someone to dig a ditch faster is pay me more. Right. But when you're doing cognitive behavior, like becoming a MSP marketing professional, that's cognitive, right? And money doesn't motivate those kind of things as much, right? It's more the intrinsic things, intrinsic instances versus extrinsic money. And the 4 ones that really work in gamification is status, access, influence, and leverage. Status is the points, levels, and badges, right? Influence is I'm leveling up, I'm up, and then I also have some additional influence in the community Access is I get access to specific groups and different things like that. But leverage is how does this translate to my real world life? And without leverage, the others kind of fall down. A lot of people will throw points, levels, and badges as something, but not those don't open up to a special access, right? You want to have things on your platform that you can only earn. Meaning I can't buy my way into this course. I can't buy my way into this group. I can't buy my way into this event. I've got to earn my VIP seat. I've got to earn my VIP access because I did the status things. The points, levels, and badges just simply kind of keep score of the activity on the site or even offline stuff we can track like health, journaling, things that aren't happening on the site, right? And then I get access. Now all of a sudden I get influence. Not only am I more influential, but maybe I can lead a group, like a grow group, or I can moderate a blog, or I can do something important inside the community, but ultimately leverage. How does this translate to my real world? So as we plan gamification after this, we're going to be saying, we're going to develop these challenges that these marketing people can go through, but it's tied to their real world KPIs. How is this actually moving the needle for the actual MSP in such a way that does multiple things? Number one, we're creating challenges that say, much like the map, right? And I think this is where you're going to get a lot more engagement around your gamification and around your themification, because people, I'm going to suggest, as we're talking about today, we tie that into what you're teaching in that map, in that themified map. Now, all of a sudden, when I go to the next step in the map, it gives me the tool that I'm going to apply in the challenge. And then when I apply it in the challenge and I track this metric, this becomes a metric I can show the MSP owner that I'm moving the needle, that I'm doing a job, that I'm worth what you're paying me, which is leverage. I get to keep my job. And if they're smart like you, cut a revenue share agreement or do something with growth, right? You know, from that standpoint. And then what's also beneficial is that your marketing service owner is going to be able to log in and see these metrics grow as well and be able to say, when I pay for this MSP Camp membership for my MSP marketing manager, I, as the owner, have a dashboard that's showing my ROI on this person going and learning and doing. And so that's the leverage aspect we're really going to be focusing on with gamification.
I love that, especially because it's such a massive need. I think it'll give owners confidence to hire a marketing coordinator, because it can be expensive, even a part-time or just a part-time coordinator or whatever. So understanding it's like, not only are they going to get the tools, but there's going to be accountability here for both parties, whatever you need to accomplish, whatever they need to accomplish, and a dashboard. It's going to be a game changer for sure, no pun intended. So yeah, I'm super excited about that. And yeah, I can see, hearing you say that, it's getting me excited all over again about gamification.
Well, let's talk about the metrics and we can wrap it up with this. With the metrics, even without gamification. So far what we've done is we've moved you from MVP, DIY, do-it-yourself platform to got you where you got, right? To a more professional pro platform, a platform unified business. We completely changed, all the core mechanics of delivering billing, CRM, content curation, all of that. Got that in place, bolted on some themification and some clear onboarding to really make it happen. And just in that level, without even putting the gamification juice on it, if I'm understanding correctly, you're roughly at 30K MRR. You're now at 80 plus. So you've almost tripled in 9 months.
In 6 months.
6 months. Yeah, that we launched in January. Yeah, you've almost tripled in 6 months. Your churn ratio, especially on non-free trials, have gone, I think you said almost virtually to zero.
Yeah. The summer, it's gone up a little bit, but it's still, even during summer, which is the highest churn time, it's still half of what it was.
Right. And I think in May you said it was basically zero.
It was basically zero.
Since January through May, except for, free trials come on
and
off. But
that's
existing
the cancellation is usually in the trial. As soon as someone gets through the trial, it was we're at like a 98% retention rate.
Right. And it was somewhere down on 90 or 80. What you're talking about before.
Sometimes it'd be 15%. Other times it'd be 8%, but it was always 8 to 15% on the old platform, which again wasn't surprising to me.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, these methodologies that Taher and the team have applied really work, right? It bumps the bottom line. I love what you said on one of our last calls. It was like, even in these summer months, we're double and tripling our sales, and retention's gone to half, sales have doubled or tripled. So that very kind of fear that you had when you ran the Upwork ad of what happens if I don't stay ahead of this, we were able to get ahead of it, continue with growth and all of that. And now what's interesting is Taher, not only are we going to finish out themification, we're now going to launch gamification. There's a lot of where WP platform is going is going to start supporting in different areas. Our last conversation was really a business conversation, which is, we've developed enough of a relationship now where we're talking about the numbers of business. So how should I hire? Where should I grow? Where should I invest those dollars? And because, I tell most of my clients this, the technology now is so systemized for me, I don't even have to think about it.
Yeah, exactly.
I get to really get into the business story, the business development, the business growth of a membership site. And I take it on. It's like a calling. Matter of fact, I was talking to my kids about this right before I was coming. I'm like, the beauty of what we get to do is we get to build these platforms, which is really, you have this office, right? Beautiful office, but your business lives on these out on the web, right? This is just input. This just inputs into the actual business is 100% virtual for you, from that standpoint. And we have the honor, the privilege, and the stewardship responsibility to help, businesses like yourself feel safe, feel secure, feel like they have the ability to scale and grow without fear of something breaking. Matter of fact, it was one of the first things you said on our sales call. It's like, I have this fear of what happens. We had some loss, had to roll back a backup, but then not only did it not restore all the backup data, it broke everybody's billing. And a lot of business owners who are running a membership site, there's all of these latent fears of, I can't put my hands on it. It's like, if this place burnt down, that'd be one thing. But if like the server blows up, like it's all gone. It's gone. To have, I was talking to my kids about this, the stewardship that we have to protect, nurture, and grow with companies like you is such an honor and privilege. And then it's fun to have clients like you who fully embrace gamification, fully embrace themification, because you too care about the growth of your members. And that's one of the things that's really exuded from you and Steve. And it's like, always talking about the members, always talking about the members, talking about the value, and you want to overserve, over deliver, and that's the heart that you have to have. Provide good content, have a great heart for your members and their success. Everything else is just filling the blanks and doing the work.
Yep, spot on.
All right, man. Well, it's been fun working with you.
Yeah, man. It's been awesome.
We're just getting ready to get gamified.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. All right. Well, team, thanks for being part of this. Again, Taher and team are just a phenomenal business. They do everything right. And they're really checking all the boxes. They're really doing their business right. They're really servicing their members extremely well. And so hopefully this podcast and this time together has given you some insight and really kind of charted the journey from inception to MVP to growth and scale, and these just different scale steps that you go through. So thanks for sharing that history, that story, the mindset, and the challenges. It's been good.
Yeah, and I will say we do a ton wrong, and we're still succeeding. So like a lot wrong, but there's enough right that we can continue to grow. So, and awesome. Kyle, really, you and your team, seriously, I'm not blowing smoke or just talking positively because we're on this. We went from not a real company to a real company really quickly because of you guys. So really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Taher.
Thanks, Kyle.